Welcome to Uncontained, episode 188. I'm your host, Aaron Static Render, and Merry Christmas to everybody. It's Christmas Eve on the day that I'm releasing this, so I don't want to leave anybody else out either. So whatever religious holiday you're celebrating now, whether it's Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Chris Mahanza, Kwanzaa, Festivus for the rest of us, or whatever it be, I hope you are enjoying the holiday and family and everything around. But if you do need a break from family, get away for about an hour, put in some earbuds, and listen to this interview that I have coming your way with hip-hop beat producer Dot Rec. And one of the coolest things I found about interviewing Dot Rec and a lot of other musicians actually is their influences and how they can come from way in left field, way in right field, and then come together in the middle and create something new. Because you'll find out Dot Rec's influences range from Mobb Deep to Iron Maiden, and other classic rock. So it's kind of interesting how that all comes together and creates his beats and what he comes up with. And you'll hear some great stuff about networking. You'll hear some great stuff about, just going out and trying to connect with people that you're interested in talking to. So I do want to thank Naru Kang for helping set this interview up. She actually made the introduction, and Naru was on one of my earlier shows back when she was with Funk Monk, and that was like a Craigslist for bands and stuff, a really cool concept. Now she's with Hype Junkie and Ignite, so definitely check her out. She's up to some really cool things. I don't want to keep you waiting any longer. I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays, and if you have some extra money that you want to spend, I'm not asking that you necessarily spend it on me, but I am asking if you do go on Amazon, you go to uncontainedpod.com and click the Amazon banner at the top of the page, and that will help support the show. I appreciate it. And from you, all I really want from Christmas is a rating and review on iTunes or the pod player that you listen to Uncontained on the most. So I appreciate you out there. Happy holidays. And this is how Dot Rec lives Uncontained. How are you doing today, Dot Rec?
Hey man, I'm doing good. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, thank you for coming on. So, Dot Rec, obviously that's not the name your parents gave you. At least I don't think so. How did you come up with Dot Rec?
Man, it's a story. Yeah, it's a story and a half. So, when I was a little bit younger, I got in a little bit of trouble and wasn't really allowed to go anywhere and do much. So I just spent a lot of time researching on the world around us and everything. And I came across a person that would give hip-hop lectures, and he called himself the Black Dot.
Okay.
And when I was reading into him and just reading into like all the knowledge and everything that he would drop into like the universe and everything, there's a point where time stops, and that point is the dot. And
okay.
I was like, well, fuck that, man. I don't want that to happen. So I was just like, Dot Rec. And that, that came to mind. I was like, yeah, that sounds kind of cool. And I just started thinking more on it. And then it turned into an acronym that tied into other things that I was researching at the time. So it stands for the Dawn of Titans, writing righteous, everyday conquering kings. And it goes into kind of what you mentioned, what uncontained means. It's just like, not settling and just fucking going for what you want and doing what you want and living how you are meant to live, not being contained by society's norms.
That's cool, man. I'll have to try to come up with an acronym for Uncontained. That's kind of a long one, though. But I'm impressed with that you got it out of 8 letters, 8-letter long acronym. That's cool. So now, listening to this guy doing the lectures, the Black Dot, was that how you got into hip-hop in the beginning?
Nah. So that journey, that started when I was probably like 11 or 12.
Okay.
I had a friend growing up. We still kick it every now and then, but he got his first computer, and we found the MSN chat rooms.
Okay.
And I'd go over his house on the weekends, and we'd get high and shit and fucking go and battle people in the chat rooms. And just going through that, eventually somebody had hit me up in the chat room and was like, "Hey, I like what you're typing up here. You ever make beats and rap?" And I'm like, "Nah." Like, I didn't know nothing about that shit back then. But he ended up sending me a copy of, and I don't even know who this dude was, just somebody on the internet. And I remember I was like 11, 12 years old. It was still pretty new. And he ended up sending me a copy of Acid Pro, and he taught me how to like loop stuff. And that was the beginning then. And about a year or two after that, the same person, he hit me up again randomly and was like, "Hey, you ever hear of Fruity Loops?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't know what any of this is." So he sent me a copy of Fruity Loops and taught me how to make beats. And it just grew from there, man. I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." Like, you grow up listening to music. And especially somebody like me, like, I didn't have a formal, like, music background or anything like that. Like, I didn't take any lessons or anything like that growing up. So it was like, I didn't really know that side of life. And so Fruity Loops opened that up. It was like, all right, so I learned how to program and sequence drums, and then from there I learned a little bit of synthesis to create my own sounds. The dude helped me build a foundation of knowledge to be able to loop, and it just all snowball effect, man. Is in a couple of years passed by, I learned how to really sample and just got better and better at it, and here I am, still getting better, still learning. There's, you never stop learning.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
That was pretty much it, man. It was just, I started out young, just some random guy on the internet sent me some programs, and actually took the time to teach me. And that's what was cool about it. Like, he ain't have to do that. Like, somebody I don't even know him, and it was like, he fucking changed my life, like, dramatically, and he probably has no idea.
Yeah. So have you ever actually met this guy, or?
Nah, dude. So we had met in the chat room, like I said, when I was like 11 or 12, around that area. And I'd say probably to the point where I was like maybe 14, like we would still communicate online, and he would like send me samples, send me loops and all that, and just help me create stuff. And then just the ties were cut. Like, I don't know, like, it just never got online again after that. I don't know what happened. And then eventually, like, the chat rooms and AOL Instant Messenger, all that shit died out with social media coming out. And I haven't talked to that dude since I was like 14 or so, 15 maybe. And I have no idea who he was. Just
Right
some
on.
stranger on the internet.
Wouldn't it be cool if that was like Dre or something like that? It was just
That'd be nuts. I'm sure. I mean, there's a chance that he might still be out there doing music, because he did music at the same time, and he would always send me stuff that he was working on, and he was one of my major influences. People always ask me that, like, who are your influences? I mean, there's a couple that people know, but for the most part, man, it's just people like him that I don't even know. Like, I don't even know who to give credit to, because they were the ones, him and a couple other people on throughout time. But
Yeah.
they help out, and they teach me some things, and it just comes into my own.
It's like, who were your influences? Some guy in a chat room.
Yeah, it sounds weird, but it's like, I mean, that's the age and culture that we grew up in. When I was 11 to 14, the internet in most households around here was still somewhat new, because not everybody had computers, let alone internet. And so it was still kind of new.
So that's a cool like origin story on how that, just some random dude liked what you were typing or like coming up with in the chat rooms, and then all of a sudden, bam, drop some audio programming software in your lap, and taking it off from there. So like you got into Acid Pro, Fruity Loops, and like what was your next step after learning that technology to kind of go from learning it to selling beats on your production website? That's .rec Productions, correct?
Yeah, I go by .rec Productions. Website is .rec.com. That's where all my instrumentals are. So I guess I first started uploading beats to the internet. I was maybe like high school, mostly on SoundClick, and I was just in awe at that website because mp3.com, that used to be around a while back, like before SoundClick and all them other sites. It was a long time ago, but I ended up finding some producers on SoundClick that I had followed on mp3.com when I was a kid. Excuse me.
No worries.
And like I was like, wow, they're still doing this. Like, so that means, you know, either they really love it or it's actually a decent business to be in. And so a couple of them, you know, I'd communicate to and even still talk to now. And so there's been a couple of people like that along the way. I want to shout out a guy named Wishmaster, Rocket Pro Productions. They were some of the ones that I remember from a long time ago that I've kind of watched their careers excel over the years. Anno Domini, he's another one. I learn a lot from him even to this day. But they kind of inspired me to keep uploading and doing stuff. So it's like I probably hit the internet first, like really trying to upload a lot of stuff like sometime in high school. But it wasn't until I think 2015, 2016, I hit up a guy named Dream Life Beats. Dream Life, like I owe a lot to him. I hit him up with a question about publishing, and that just like ventured out into a crazy relationship with him. He taught me how to market stuff like Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, all this and that. Really like getting an actual website built and designed from the ground up and all that stuff. Like he kind of lit a fire under my ass for that one, because I didn't have my own actual website or anything until I met him.
Yeah.
And he definitely was a big inspiration to really push hard the last few years. And even now, like he's like multi-platinum, got all kinds of shit going on. Like he's always somebody that I look to keep going.
That's some nice credentials right there as well. Getting multi-platinum, and a good connection to have as well. So what were some of the things that he enlightened you about promoting yourself with?
Basically how anybody can do it. It's not easy, and you know it's still something that I struggle with myself, but it's like having the foundation of how the internet marketing works. You know, having your own website, having a Facebook pixel installed on it so you can remarket to the people that visit your website on Facebook ads. Just the whole aspect of how to target people and how to find the right people to target and market to. It's just like a world that I didn't know really existed. Like until that point, I just thought it was, hey, you upload your stuff and people will flock to it.
Yeah.
Which happens sometimes, but most of the time it's like you know, just because you put it on the internet, you know, there's nobody seeing it. Especially nowadays, because there's so much out there that all these companies are thinking of ways to make you have to spend money to get people to notice it, which is where we're at now. It's you got to spend money to market anything now. You can't just like post it on a website and get good results.
Yeah, you get lost in all the other stuff that's out there too. You know, it's beautiful that you can post and be easily discovered, but it's also a lot of people wanting to be easily discovered, and you get lost in that.
Yeah, there's so much out there. A lot of good stuff though, but there is a lot of junk.
Yeah, you just got to sift through that, my friend. So,
Yep.
How long would you say that you've been making beats for then?
Let's see. If I count from all the way in the beginning when I really didn't know what I was doing, I'd say probably about like 20 years, 21 years.
Okay. All right. So, when did you decide to go from just solo making beats to starting like a clothing line?
So the clothing, that's something that I've always had on the back burner. I just never knew like what to do. But even as a teenager, I was always infatuated with the stuff that I would always find on karmaloop.com. Like they always had like the alternative streetwear type clothes and stuff like that, the hoodies.
Okay.
Like I love that shit. Just like the whole street culture when it comes to like the streetwear and everything. So I always liked that, and I thought it'd be cool to one day have my own, but like I said, I didn't know what to do. So I just had these ideas brewing, and I met online. I should give another shout out to Reef Ali. He runs the Vinyl Frontier.
Okay.
If anybody that doesn't know about that, it's he just preserves vinyl records. So you can go to his website and find vinyl records from fucking who knows where, and he's got them online. I don't know like the legality of it all, but if there's anything you're looking for, he probably has it.
Okay, fair enough.
But he's got a t-shirt that I love the design for, so I hit him up one day. I was like, yo, who did your artwork? And he referred me to a guy in Milwaukee named Kame One. So I hit him up and like, yo, I love your artwork. I really need you to do some stuff for me. And I had these designs in mind, and I just like sketched them out, gave them to him, and he drew them up for me and did an unbelievable job. But at that point, like I didn't even know what I was going to do with them. I was just like, I got these designs in my head. I need to get them out. And I can't draw, so it was like, I can't do it. And so for about 2 years, I was just sitting on these designs, not really having anything to do with them. And I was like, well, I really need to figure something out. And I didn't want to take them to a printer and be like, yeah, just print these designs, because then you got to get like X amount of shirts and all that stuff. I was like, then I got to have somewhere to store them, and that wasn't going to happen. So then I found out that there's companies that do that shit for you, and which I didn't know. Like it's pretty basic, but I didn't know that they existed. So print on demand, apparently it's like a huge industry where you can upload your designs and choose what shirts or choose anything that you want to print on, and when somebody orders it, the order goes to them and they print it and ship it to the customer.
Yeah, I have something like that through TeePublic for my shirts.
Yeah, they're one. I use Printify. They seem pretty good so far. But yeah, when I came across that idea, I'm like, well, shit, I'm gonna start making T-shirts, and then I got my website made, and it launched, I think, like middle of October. I can't remember the exact date because I had to pause for a little bit. I had an issue with the free shipping wasn't working, so I had to get that fixed before I actually sent it live. But yeah, it was like mid-October that actually launched, and I got several designs up there, ranging from like things inspired by Iron Maiden to fucking just like work. You know what I mean? Like, just random things that just, they strike me, and I get an image in my mind and get the guy to draw it for me.
Very
so
cool, man.
It's
Very
random
cool
stuff, but there's some pretty cool stuff up there. And I like to say, like, they each have a story. And like if you go to my website and you look at some of them, like in the description is kind of like the story that inspired the thought of it. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was actually checking those out before the interview. There's a couple really cool ones that I liked. There was one where it was almost it was along the lines of like, I don't know, the Scream painting where that's the alien with the hands like on the side of his face, but it was like the F the 9 to 5 shirt. I dug that one, and then it took me a minute to I had to zoom in on the long distance runner one. It looks like he's running from like one universe to another one. Is that what it's all about, or?
Yeah, so that ties in. That one ties in with the. Yeah, you're right. It ties in with the one that's called the Battlefield. So which the Battlefield design and the long distance runner design, they were inspired by Iron Maiden.
Okay.
So the Battlefield is from their song "The Trooper," and there's a line in the song that says, "On this battlefield, no one wins." And when I heard that, I was just like, and I listened to them like for all my life, but I never really took time to understand what they were saying. So when I heard that, I was like, on this battlefield, no one wins. He's talking about a war from like the 1600s or 1800s or something. But I felt it was kind of relevant today, man, because everybody's fucking going crazy.
I hear that, man.
Everybody's offended, starting fights with everybody. So I started thinking deeper. So that one displays like, you got pollution, you got wars over religion, over corporate world stuff, money and all that stuff, drugs, guns. And so then that one depicts the world kind of just blowing up because everybody's at war.
Yeah.
And then the Long Distance Runner, that was another song that they had. And that just shows that character jumping from the battlefield into the next phase, or the next plane of reality, I guess.
All right. I was trying to figure out what he was running from and running to, so that kind of helps out a little bit on that too. So yeah, but you do have some really cool shirts, and check those out. You can get those on your website .rec.com, correct?
Yeah, the clothing is on. At some point, I'm probably going to merge them together, but right now the clothing is at .reclothing.com. But I think I'm going to merge everything together at some point, just so I have everything under the one site. But yeah, right now the music's at .rec.com and the clothing is .reclothing.com.
All right, man. Very cool. So now I guess I want to give a shout out real quick to Naru. When I had her on my show, she was doing Funk Monk. It was basically like a Craigslist for bands, or like a Yellow Pages for bands where they could rent like studios, equipment and stuff when they're on the road, and even find bands to play with and shows and stuff, which was really cool. I don't know if she's still doing that now, so it's been a little while since I've actually talked to her. I'll have to catch up. Yeah, I just want to give her a shout out and thank her for her hooking this up and
Absolutely.
connecting us. And when she recommended it, I was like, yeah, I'll definitely get you on the show. But before we move into the final questions here, I want to know what is next for you. What's your next any projects coming out or anything like that?
That's a good question.
I try to ask those.
I do intend on revisiting some things that I've made in the past I just never released. There's a couple of soundtracks that I sampled like every song from on the soundtracks, and there's some things that I want to do with them. It's not so much revisiting them as much as it is trying to figure out how to bring them to an end. Like, I didn't want to just like sample all the songs and be like, here's a soundtrack of all sampled stuff. Like, I want to make the sampled soundtrack as theatrical as the actual movies were, you know what I mean? And that takes a little bit of thinking.
Okay, so how would you do that? Or like for somebody who's not quite in the beats production business like myself, how would you explain taking the soundtrack and making it more theatrical?
Well, it's like, because when you're watching a movie and like a song comes on, like you get that emotion because you're seeing the visual and everything, and you relate that song to that part of the movie or what's going on.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just listening to it, you might not really catch the same feeling, in my opinion. And so what I was going to try to do, and I thought about even taking quotes from the movie and stuff itself, and that might work. But then I started noticing on one soundtrack in particular, some of the songs were just on the soundtrack. They weren't in the movie.
Yeah, they do that. It's like inspired by the motion picture or something like that. It's not even, there's like some that actually do appear, but then they got the inspired songs.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about that, like whether I want to have like actual rappers do stuff on them or make remixes of just of anybody, if I could, whatever I have acapellas of, or doing the movie quotes and stuff like that. It's something that I've been thinking about in terms of at least one project that I want to come out with. There is an MC from, I think he's in New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I got it right, but Nick Ashley, dude's an animal. And I met him through a mutual friend of ours, and he used one of my beats on on the project that he's going to have coming out soon, which is pretty awesome. And our mutual friend, is a cool story behind that. So anybody out there that's a fan of Mobb Deep,
Wow.
know that Prodigy died a couple years ago, and his last album, the I always fuck it up, Hegelian dialectic. I don't know how it's pronounced.
Neither do I, so I'll let it
They'll all
slide.
fucking hate me for it. I'm pretty sure it's Hegelian dialectic. It was volume 1 of a 3-volume set, but it's the only one that's got released so far because of his passing. But I saw on the back of it, executively produced and engineered by Joe the Engineer. So I searched that name, and I found the guy on Instagram, and I hit him up. I'm like, yo, this album is like the best sounding hip hop album I've ever heard. Like sonically, dynamically, it's clean as fuck. And it's like, you don't hear that in hip hop anymore. And, but it sounded so nice. And, we started chopping it up, and, we became pretty good friends to the point where, I'm able to go to New York every now and then and visit him, and he teaches me some of the stuff that he knows about engineering. And that's
Nice.
helped tremendously. Not that my mixes have been bad, definitely a lot of room for improvement, but just within the past year, like, you can see, like, day and night after I started fucking with him. But definitely been learning a lot from him. Tell everybody, like, he's one of the best engineers out there. Really knows a lot. And so he introduced me to a couple people. Nick Ashley was one of them. He's gonna, whenever, I don't know when he plans on dropping his album, but it's gonna be awesome because that boy can rap. And the song that he did on My Beat's
Okay.
crazy. It's about like, I don't know how much I should talk about it, but he drops a lot of
Any
knowledge on it.
NDAs there?
Yeah,
Alright.
the GMOs and all that stuff, and it's a crazy song, but it's something cool to look forward to in the pipeline. Just in general, I mean, just looking for new people to work with.
When can people expect to hear that song, or do you have any idea?
I have no idea. I know that he got the masters on it maybe about like 2 months ago, and it's I know he's building the rest of the project. I just don't know when it's all going to get released. I can't wait because I'm just looking forward to hearing what else he's got on it. But yeah, that's one of them. And like I said, I'm just looking for new people to work with and build with. I got a thing going on now. It's just like it's like a package deal type thing. You can get beats out of it. Then I got a bunch of knowledge and some books and stuff that I included into the package about mixing, mastering, and recording and all that stuff. Just a little bit of things here and there that will help out the up and coming artist. That might just be starting out.
Cool. Actually, that segues just about perfect into like the next part of the show that I do have designed to help people who are looking to get into the entertainment industry. What would be some advice that you would share with somebody who's looking to get started out in the music industry?
The way I see it right now, which, of course it's subject to change as time goes on, but if you're starting out right now, definitely work on your craft as often as you can so you can sound as good as you can, because there's so much out there and there's so much talent, and you really have to at least be on the same level as everybody else to essentially get seen and noticed. Not saying you got to be better or anything like that, but there's a standard. There's a standard. You can't just you can't upload music that sounds like it was recorded in a public restroom and expect it to be getting as much attention as something that was professionally done.
Very true. Very true.
So you gotta be on point in terms of your releases. Only release finished product. Nobody wants to hear unmixed stuff. Nobody cares if it hasn't been edited yet. Like, if they hear it and they hear that it's trash, they're not going to want to hear anymore. So only put out good quality, or at least the best of your ability quality. Only put that out. What else? The business side of it, man, is not just the business, but you gotta market. So whether you're doing it yourself or you have a whole team, like somebody's got to market that shit, and there is a lot that goes into it. And in order not to get screwed around by somebody else, like you really got to know what's going on, because otherwise, if somebody else does it all for you, then chances are you're going to get screwed out of something. So definitely learn the marketing and promotion, publishing. That's a huge one. That's actually where the money's at. So you don't want to get screwed out of your publishing. So that's the main points, is just, put out your best work, learn the stuff that nobody really wants to do, such as the marketing and promotions and stuff like that, and definitely get your head into some publishing so you know what's going on, because you never know when an opportunity is going to come up, and it's good to, when somebody starts throwing out certain words and everything, you want to know what they're talking about.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. So you're actually doing really good at this, because you are leading me right into where my next question is, talking about promotion and promoting yourself. What are you currently doing to promote yourself? So what would be some advice you care to share?
So right now, all I'm doing, I got the social media pages and stuff that I post content to as often as I can. But within that, I reach out to people that I feel like I vibe with, or, I listen to a lot of stuff, and if I like what I hear, I'll contact them and try to build a relationship. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's one way, because there's a couple different kinds of hip hop producers on the internet. You got some that are making the stuff that sounds hot right now, and then you got some that make traditional hip hop, you got some that make alternative hip hop, you know what I mean? But like, if you go to the big sites like SoundCloud, BeatStars, stuff like that, a lot of the stuff kind of sounds the same. Like, there's not a whole lot of top people that are doing it that sound different.
Yeah.
So it's like, just try to stand out a little bit. And since I don't fit that criteria, like I don't do the tight beats and all that stuff, I've tried, but it's just not my thing. I don't like sounding like everything else out there. So I have to personally reach out to people that are also on that same wavelength. Like, they're not trying to be the next hot thing or anything like that. They're just trying to do what they do. If you like it, you like it. If not, then you move on to the next. And so I try to reach out to people like that kind of fit the mold that I'm in.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to force a sound or anything like that. And like I said, like, some people, they fuck with it, some people don't. It's not everybody's cup of tea, which is fine. So that's a big thing that goes into it, is networking, reaching out to people, providing them value in a way that not only you benefit, but you got to benefit the other party as well. So it's whatever you bring to the table, it's got to be something that helps everybody eat. A lot of people get that kind of mixed up. They think networking is just like sending somebody stuff or requesting stuff from people, and it's like, you gotta, whatever you bring, it's got to be beneficial for everybody. Otherwise, nobody's going to waste their time, because there's so much opportunity out there.
I'm glad you brought up that point. That is actually really good. Like, networking isn't just going and seeing what, like, connections somebody else can make for you,
Right.
It's like going out and trying to actually help somebody else, and not always expect anything in return.
That's the thing. You can't really expect anything. Like, and I say that like, that's kind of like a double edged. Like, yeah, if you put your heart and soul into something, there's part of you that does expect something out of that. But you don't go into a business relationship, or really you shouldn't go into any kind of relationship expecting something out of that other person. That just goes back, like, I put my chips on the table, you put your chips on the table, and we'll build together, and hopefully what we build gains traction and people flock to it. But to expect that to happen, I think, is the wrong mindset, because again, there's just so much going on. It's good to build with as many people as you can or want to, but I don't think you should expect anything, because it's really, once you put the art out there, it's not up to you as to who likes it or not. So some stuff will work, some won't.
Definitely. So you were saying you don't quite fit the mainstream beats and everything like that. Like, how would you describe what style you produce?
That's a good question, man. But yeah, like I don't feel like I've tried to do tight beats, but then it's like it's so for me because I listen to mostly like Mobb Deep, Iron Maiden, fucking like
Mobb Deep
other
and Iron
classic
Maiden.
rock. Yeah, it's
Okay.
like kind of strange, but like for me personally to try to stay up on tight beats, like I gotta constantly listen to a bunch of music that I don't want to listen to.
Fair enough.
And like but some people that's all right, you know, they like what's out now. Personally, I only like a small fraction of it. So like I kind of stay to the side of like sometimes experimental type sounds. I've heard some people call it alternative. I don't really know, but like when I hear this stuff, it kind of strikes me as more like traditional type hip hop, like 90s type stuff, to an extent, with some kind of modernization to it. But I mean, it's not like I might have some elements of modern music in it, like trap hi-hats and shit like that, some 808s now and then, but it's like you wouldn't be I don't think that you'd be able to classify it as like the new trap wave or anything that's out now and stuff like that. It might have some elements, but it's kind of more of its own thing. Like it doesn't. I don't see it being much like a lot of stuff out there. Because when I do turn on the radio, it's like, yeah, my shit's not going to be on here. That's not a bad thing though.
It's respectable too, because a lot of the stuff that you hear, like when people say like, "Oh, rap is like all crap," or "All this like rock is crap," it's the stuff they're hearing on the radio that's
Right.
like so like pushed by labels and like sculpted so the masses like it, and
It had to, otherwise, that's how labels make money. You know, they have to sculpt their product in a certain way that they know is going to sell.
yeah,
They're not. The days are over where they kind of risk on an artist, at least on the major top levels, like because you don't really see too many people like come out and then just completely flop. Now I say that, and people are going to say, "Oh, well, so and so is a one-hit wonder and all that stuff." It's like, yeah, but that was kind of, I don't know. I kind of see that as being the plan. Like maybe that person only had a one-album deal or a two-album deal or something. You know what I mean? But like they're not putting all their resources into one artist and hoping that it works out now. Whereas
No,
back in
no.
the day, they might have. Like there's not. I just don't see it. So it's the stuff that is getting released. It's packaged in a certain way that they know it's gonna, for the most part, give a good return.
Yeah, and that one hit wonder thing, that's like, as you know, to a lot of people would kill to actually be a one hit wonder. That means you actually had a hit, but
Hell yeah.
on the and then like compared to a no hit wonder or a wonder where my hit is or something
Right.
like that. But but also the record labels kind of like the one hit wonder as well, because like they don't have to like pay out near as much for the one hit wonder as say somebody who has multiple hits. I'll just throw I don't know, the Bieber out there for, you know, he can demand so much more for an album than a one hit wonder, or you know, any of these pop kids that have been
Yeah.
like just selling like crazy to all the teeny boppers and stuff, but they can demand much more for each album, and then on the one hit wonders, the record labels make a lot more off of that.
You got it, man. And that comes back to knowing the business and all the publishing details and all that stuff, because a lot of newer artists, or not newer, but a lot of younger artists that don't know any better, they'll sign these deals thinking like $500,000 or $1 million deal is good, not realizing they got to pay that shit back, not realizing that the label's taking 50% or whatever percentage of their merchandise, of their actual sales and everything. So it's like at the end of the year, they really don't have nothing to show for it. So when it comes time to make another album, they ain't got the funds to do that. So it's like, that's a major thing. It's people think like, oh, they signed a $2 million deal. It's like they got to pay that shit back, man. Like, that was just
That's
an
a
advance.
loan from the record label. That's a
Yeah.
loan.
And you go out
so-
there and buy all these cars and drugs and shit. Like, you know what I mean? You ain't have nothing to pay back. That's
Yeah.
when your
Yeah,
career's
exactly.
over.
The whole like 80s like hair metal thing is over. But it's kind of coming back through in hip hop a little bit, you know, with all the bling bling stuff. But yeah, so I guess like talking of styles again, you mentioned that, you know, you like stuff like Mobb Deep and Iron Maiden and classic rock and stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
does the classic rock and like Iron Maiden come out in your music? Can you like noticeably like hear Iron Maiden in there?
I wish.
Like, can you hear that influence somehow?
I don't know. I'd say probably not, because when people hear that I like them, they're like, "Holy shit! I never would have known that, or I never would have expected that." I don't know. Sometimes I try to have like crazy melodies and stuff, which is one thing that I think, you know, just musically that they're really known for, is their guitar riffs and melodies are just fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't, looking at my stuff for myself, like I don't think that you would really be able to put the two together in that regard. Maybe one day. That would be cool. I would like to incorporate some like live instruments and stuff like that and try to make a blend of the styles a little bit, but it's just something I haven't really explored yet.
Yeah, there is something to having live instruments too. Like, it's really cool what people can do with like Fruity Loops and like sampling and like creating, like programming drum beats and stuff like that. But there's just a certain feel like when you go to a show and you see a live band play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Opposed to having the track playing in the back.
So that's I would come out with a gem for some people. You mentioned that there's a certain feel when you're watching a band play. So one thing that I learned from Joe the engineer is when he's mixing the records, he places all the sounds together as if it was an actual band playing. So it's like, instead of having everything just like down the center or whatever, like he'll have, and I started doing this too a little bit, but like your hi-hats will be panned to the left as if you're the drummer, the crash will be panned to the right, you know what I mean?
Okay.
The snares in the middle, kicks in the middle, stuff like that. If you got a guitar, you know, that might be up front to the right a little bit. And you know, that if done correctly, it creates that kind of space to where it's similar to hearing it live, or you know, or being the person playing it, because you can, like, if you listen closely, you can hear that space in the music itself, to where it's like, it sounds like that guitarist is over there, that keyboardist is over there. So that shit's pretty cool. It's I don't know how many people do that. I don't even know if I should have said that, but you know.
No, yeah, that's really cool
anybody
though. It's
listening
kind of
that-
like
Yeah. Anybody that engineers, like that might be something to keep in mind. It might take your shit to the next level.
a while back, it's like 2003, I was working at Best Buy, and they were starting to come up with different like technologies. They had super audio CDs, all right, which was like 5.1 surround sound music.
Okay.
And it's like you're standing center stage in
Right.
a way. To actually do it like on a regular CD and still be able to hear that is awesome. The spatialness and like the I don't know, almost organic feeling.
Yeah, that's another thing with a lot of music nowadays, is when they master it, they just make it as loud as they can. And doing that, you know, yeah, it might make it louder and make it sound like everything else, but in doing that, it literally squeezes those dynamics out of the music. So you know, I mean, you might have something that might have a lot of movement, have a lot of space, but then you squash it through like a massive limiter to make it sound
compress
louder.
it.
Yeah, and it just takes that life right out of it. And that's, you know, that's one thing I don't really like about some stuff nowadays, is that it's not as dynamic as it used to be. Some of it's coming back now because there are a lot of I mentioned Dream Life earlier. He's been making a lot of noise with a couple other people that he works with. They'll go into the studio and they make their own samples, and then they sell those online. And, you know, people like me, you know, I'll buy them and chop them up and do whatever I want with them. But it's like really organic, natural. It's not over processed or anything like that. And you know, people like them, they're kind of bringing that back to kind of, I guess, it does a couple of things. You don't have to worry about getting sued by some major artist for using their work without permission.
Yeah.
And it's still live music, live instrumentation, and, you know, real synths and keyboards and stuff. So it's and it's mixed and stuff professionally. So it's got that feeling and, you know, space to it, and it just sounds really good, not being over processed. And I think that's what a lot of stuff is missing nowadays, because everybody just over processes everything and makes it as loud as they can. And
yes,
one thing I've learned is, like, if you do it right, you don't need to over process it, because it'll sound really loud on its own if it's mixed together right. You don't have to physically make everything loud.
There you go. That should be spread around the industry so everybody gets to know that, and we
Yes.
get better. We get better music as consumers. So now to keep things rolling on here, I don't want to keep you all night here, since you are sitting in your car and it is sounds like it's raining outside right now where you're
man,
at.
it's been a rainy day today.
Where are you at, by the way?
I'm in Delaware.
Delaware. Okay. All right. So it's a little bit later there for you right now. So
Yeah.
we'll keep on rolling here. So what would be a highlight that you would care to share with the Uncontained audience?
Shit, man. There's been a lot of, like, moments where I'm just like, I just take a step back and I'm like, awesome, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I finally learned this, or I've been able to, like, figure something out. Mainly when it comes to my mixes. When it comes to working with people, you know, there's been a couple collaborations. I'm not going to mention, like, who they were, because they didn't really turn out the way I wanted them, so I don't want to give them shine.
Yeah.
There's some shady business that goes on. Again, that's another reason why you need to know your shit if you're going to try to do music. But at least, like, being able to reach out and converse with certain people who at one point, like, you just admired, but the reach was, like, so gigantic that there was no possible way you could reach them. Now
Yeah.
with social media, you can. And there's a couple of my favorite rappers that, you know, I can email and they respond back to me. And it's like, that's fucking awesome. Just being able to, you know, talk to certain people and learn certain things. Meeting Joe the engineer, and my first time going up there to the studio, he was like, so you want to get better at mixing vocals, right? I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, I want to get good at everything. And he was like, all right, well, come sit here. So I'm sitting next to him at the studio boards, and he pulls up a project of Prodigy. I was just like, never
Really?
in my fucking life would I have ever thought that I'd be sitting in a studio getting taught how a fucking Prodigy record was constructed and mixed and mastered and all that shit. That blew my fucking mind.
Right on, man.
But I would have never been able to do that and gain that experience and ultimately learn the things that I learned if I didn't keep going. And of course, there's been times where I just want to fucking give it all up and call it quits, and you know what I mean? Like, that happens. you just got to keep pushing, and because you never know what's going to happen, man. And it's like I never
Yeah.
knew that was going to happen. I never knew I'd, be able to be in a position to learn from like one of the best in the field that they're in. You know what I mean? But when the time's right, doors are open up. You just got to keep pushing and keep going, and eventually, things are going to start happening.
Yeah, definitely, man. It sounds like you are actually you're really good at networking and reaching out to the people that you want to connect with. And like, just curious for the person who wants to do that and reach out to somebody, but what is your success rate reaching out to people?
Well, I mean, I get rejected a lot. But you gotta understand, though, not, everybody's super busy. And when it comes to social media, there's certain people that they have somebody else running their social media, so it's not, it's not them. So definitely, don't get discouraged if you reach out to somebody and they don't get back to you. As for an actual success rate, I wouldn't even know where to begin, because I've contacted tons of people through the last couple of years, and some of them hit you back, some of them don't. It's just, if you look at it like that, it's just a numbers game. The more people you contact, the more it'll hit you back. But I guess the thing that to always keep in mind, as to, we touched on it a little bit earlier, is always have something brought to the table. You can't just hit somebody up and be like, hey, you're my favorite artist, listen to my stuff, or hey, you're my favorite rapper, I want you to use my beats and shit. Like that's not gonna work.
No. Like you said, when you messaged Joe the engineer, you were like, hey Joe, I listened to the new CD of the best hip hop record I've heard. We're just paraphrasing what you said, of course.
Right.
So did you throw out something else that you could provide him too?
I don't really recall offering him anything at that point. And sometimes the conversation will work this way. And I'm sure that's something that everybody can relate to. You might strike up a conversation with somebody in a store, and next thing you know, y'all are hanging out next weekend or something. Sometimes things just progress in a natural way, and those are the things that if you don't have to put much effort in it in that regard, then it's kind of just, in my mind, kind of meant to be. You're supposed to cross paths and connect in some way and learn something, and through the course of the relationship, yes, you're going to offer, or you're going to have something offerable that person can also benefit from. But in the beginning, it was just that was just it. I was just like, dude, this is hands down the cleanest sounding stuff I've ever heard, or at least in a long time. And it just grew from there. And he responded, I responded, he responded, and we just continued talking. And over the course of a year or so, we just kept building a friendship. And sometimes it works that way.
Awesome.
But
man.
if you're actively seeking out to work with somebody, then if you're a producer and you're trying to get with an artist, you can provide obviously instrumentals, you can provide artwork, if you can do graphic design, anything that an artist needs, you can try to offer that to them instead of just coming off hey, I want you to use my stuff so I can make money. That's not going to cut it.
Because I get so many people saying that, it's or leave a comment in somebody's post. Oh, awesome! Check out my music.
That's just not gonna work.
That doesn't work either.
You have to build a real relationship and real friendships with people, because that's what that's the old saying. It's not what you can do; it's who you know, type thing.
Yeah,
and that's life. You're not gonna get very far in general just using people. You have to genuinely want to do it. You got to genuinely want to build a relationship, because that's what makes everything go round. So it's, you may not have anything to offer in the beginning, but build a relationship. try to build a
Yes.
relationship, and then eventually, the time might come where it's like, hey, I need something. That person has it, and then they contact you, and that could be your breakthrough. Who knows? But the important thing is you got to build a foundation of an actual relationship, just as you would going to wherever you go to meet people. Wherever that is, it's
At
the same
the
thing.
town watering hole, or
Yeah.
whatever you call it. All right, let's do the flip side of that coin real quick to the question on the highlight. Real quick, what was a low light or a hardship that you've had to deal with?
I mean, it's always been hard. Where I'm from, there is a music scene, but there's not a hip hop scene.
Okay.
So like even rock bands, if they get the go ahead to perform at local venues and stuff, then chances are they're doing cover songs.
Yep.
Very few of them are allowed to actually do their own original stuff. And when it comes to hip hop, there's been a couple shows here and there, like local type events. There's been a couple venues where some national headliners come through, but typically somebody gets shot or stabbed and they shut the place down. So it's
That
like,
happens in Delaware?
of course it does. That's why it happens in Delaware, because nobody knows about it.
Exactly. I'm originally from Iowa too, so nobody thinks anything happens in Iowa besides
Like,
meth
I mean, if
and
you
growing corn.
if you listen to some like old Nas records and Jay-Z and what was the other one I was listening to the other day? No, I think it was a Jay-Z album. But not like old like early mid 90s stuff. They talk about coming to Delaware a lot.
Really?
Of course, yeah, we're only like 4 hours away from New York City. 2 hours from Baltimore. Jersey's our neighbor. So I
Okay.
mean, a lot goes on. It's just you don't hear about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's never really been a scene where I'm at. Upstate, it might be a little bit different because they're like borderline Philly. So it's just, there's generally just a lot more happening up there than
Yeah.
I'm at the southern part of the state where there's fucking nothing. So it's always been difficult in that respect because there's not a chance given to hip hop, because when people hear hip hop, they just equate it with drugs, sex, violence, fucking, just stuff that, yes, it has to do with that sometimes, but that's not the essence of hip hop.
It's kind of the same way with metal too,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, of course.
it scares people.
Yeah, they don't understand it, so they're just deathly afraid of it. They think it's just gonna bring nothing but trouble, which sometimes it does, but generally speaking, it's not going to if it's given the proper opportunity to present
Yes.
itself. But yeah, so there's not really been a way to express the music in those terms. And then when it comes to family, like, that's been a struggle too, because it's like family typically, and even some close friends, they just look at you weird, like, man, it's a fucking hobby. What are you doing? Because part of that though is that the average person doesn't know what it's like to throw away everything and chase what you actually want and desire. The average person does what they're told to do, whereas some of the outliers, they're like, all right, well, I might do that for a while, but I'm ultimately going to do what I want to do, and that's going to be build this business. It's going to be do this or that, travel the world. People aren't going to understand that, but they don't need to understand it.
I like that.
But it's a struggle, though. It's a struggle because part of that is like you got to believe in yourself, because the people closest to you aren't always going to. And if they do, then you're very fortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially starting out, man, there's going to be a lot of people that just think you're fucking stupid. You just keep grinding, keep doing it, and eventually you'll figure out a way to make it a legit, successful business, and just never stop learning, never stop giving never start giving a fuck, is what I meant to say. Because people are always going to try to bring you down, and you just got to keep going, man. Even me, in an area where there's no music, hit the internet and surround yourself with people that are like-minded on the internet if you have to. Like, I mean, if you can't find them in real life, I can find them on the internet, build that relationship, and, meet up in real life and do it that way if you have to.
Right on, man. Right on. So, that is actually some really good advice right there, and that's kind of how you started out with the MSN chat rooms back in
Oh, yeah.
back in the day. So it's coming full circle. Now, when you do put out music, when somebody hears your beats, whether it's somebody looking to use the beats to rap over or somebody just listening, is there something that you want them to feel and take away from your music?
It's a good question. My aunt and uncle recently visited, and my aunt wanted to hear some music that I've made because she never heard it before, so I let her hear some stuff. And I let her hear, she's like, let me hear one that you composed yourself. So I'm like, all right. And she starts listening to it, and she was like, you know what? This reminds me of just walking through the city and coming upon a park bench and just sitting down and just looking at the nature around me. And I'm thinking in my head, like, what? like that was in my mind, like that was nowhere near like what I see and what I feel when I hear it. So it's like, I don't know, like everybody has their own thing, so all that I can really say is, like, if you listen to something that I make and it invokes some kind of emotion or some kind of feeling that ultimately is positive, then that's good. When I make stuff, I don't have anything particular in mind. Like, I want this to sound a certain way. I want this to make you feel a certain way. I just make what comes out, and the rest is up to you as the listener. If you want to make it feel this way, then hopefully it makes you feel that way.
Right on. Just leave it open for interpretation.
Yeah, that's the best I can answer that one. I'd be like, I don't know.
All right, man. Fair enough. Fair enough. You don't have to have the answers to everything. That's what kind of makes it fun sometimes. So I do have one more question coming up for you here before I let you go. But first, before we get to that, where can people find you and your music on the World Wide Web? What is your corner of the internet?
Gotcha. So my website's .rec.com. And you spell that DOTWRECK .rec.com. That's the music. If you want to check out some t-shirts and whatnot, you can go to .recclothing.com. And social media, I'm on Facebook and Instagram at .rec Productions. And that's mainly where I'm most active.
All right, perfect. I'll put those in the show notes so people can go to my website and find them, and they'll be able to get those links and connect with you. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. I have that one final question for you. It's the title question of the show. I really appreciate you coming on today, sitting in your car while it was raining outside and in the balmy Delaware air. I'm sure it's nice and warm out there right now. A little sarcasm, but I appreciate you taking time to come on Uncontained and talk with my audience. I have one final question for you. .rec, how do you live uncontained?
It's a good question. I guess it comes to a point where you're just not gonna settle for anything less than what you truly desire, and I came to that point, and so it takes sacrifice, and it's funny, we talked about building relationships and everything. I've actually had to sacrifice quite a few though. Friendships, actual like relationships, girlfriends and stuff like that. It's
yes.
If they're not on the same page and trying to run with you, then you got to let them go. Even if it's family, and that can be the toughest part for some people. It doesn't matter if it's blood. If they're holding you back, then you got to let them go. And if anything's holding you back from what you want, you got to let it go. And that's really, I think, the only way to live uncontained. Figure out who you are and what you want, and start working towards it nonstop. And don't let anybody get in your way. If they do, let them go. Like, you're here for a reason, and that reason is not to turn your back on your heart.
Nice. All right, man. Those are some good words right there. I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people can get some value from that as well. So I have one final thing for you to do, and then you can go back inside and get back in the heat and, warm up a little bit. So will you do me the honor of signing off the show today, .rec?
Absolutely. First off, again, I just want to mention out where you can find me, .rec.com for all my music, .rec clothing if you want some t-shirts, and .rec Productions, Instagram and Facebook. And with that said, I'm .rec, and I live uncontained.
And that does it for another episode of Uncontained, and that also does it for 2019 with Uncontained. I will have brand new episodes coming your way in 2020, and I look forward to bringing you more guests and hooking you up with some great shows, some great advice from entertainers from across the board, and hopefully you discover some people that you're really interested in as well. So I'll leave you with this, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show. And all I really want from Christmas from you guys is, one, to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Share the show with someone that you think would enjoy the show. And then the other step to it, please, a rating and review in the pod player that you listen to the show in. That's all I want. And for you to have a hell of a 2020 as well. Thank you for listening. And until next year, live uncontained.